Okay, with this video, we're going to just kind of discuss a little bit further on how to rewrite an equation. And we are rewriting this equation. It's got multiple variables. It's got an a and a b. And we want to solve it for b. And the goal of that would be so that if we know what a is, we just plug in a and it'll automatically give us our output of b. Really, really quickly, we'll identify b. So let's just kind of play around with this a little bit. Okay, so here's our problem. And just remember, when we're working through these, the same rules apply with traditional equations as they do with this one. In other words, if we add something, we must add it to both sides. If we subtract something, we must subtract it to both sides. Multiply, we got to multiply both sides. Anyway, on down the line. Okay, so let's get right into it. So the goal is to get b all by itself. And over here, I have this b divided by 5 minus 1. Okay, so I want to get b all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this 1. I need to move this 1. I need to move everything else over to the other side. That's what we're saying when we solve this equation for b. I've got to get b all by itself and everything else on the other side. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is, so remember, I got to get b all by itself. Okay, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Because if I have a negative 1 here plus 1, this will give me a 0. That'll leave me with just a b divided by 5 on the left-hand side. Okay, so we're going to do that now. 2 plus 1 is simply 3. Now I've got this. Okay, now I've got b, and it's b divided by 5 is equal to this quantity. Well, I don't want to know what b divided by 5 is. I just want to know what b is. So how do I get rid of this 5 so I can have b all by itself? Well, let's look at this. b divided by 5. What's the opposite of division? That's multiplication. So if I multiply both sides, and I have to do it to both sides, by a certain number, I can maybe eliminate this 5. Well, what would it take? Well, if I'm dividing by 5, if I multiply both sides by 5, that should do the trick. So let's try that. If I multiply both sides by 5, this is going to give me 5b divided by 5, which is 1b, which is b. That's what I'm looking for. So that's the ticket. That's what I need to do. Okay, now let's look at the right-hand side. What I do to one side, I have to do to the entire other side. I can't just do it to one side and not the other side. And I can't just do it to part of it. I can't just multiply this negative 9a by 5. That would change the value of the equation. So we can't do that. So I've got to do it by the entire quantity here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it by the negative 9a as well as the 3. Okay, my left-hand side will completely cancel out. Those 5s will cancel out, leaving me just a b. And then my right-hand side would be negative 45a plus 15, and that's because I distributed that 5 to everything inside.